Happy August, John.
Hey, same to you, Marty.
Thank you. It's August already.
Uh,
I'd like to welcome those of you who are watching to our Intentional Living podcast. Marty Keller here in Sacramento, California, John Donovan in Oceanside, California. We're continuing to do our best to hold up the West Coast, and
yeah,
we're having a we're actually having a nice cooling trend this week. It's only been in the 80s, which is pretty cool for Sacramento at this time of year.
yeah, yeah.
It's almost like being in San Diego.
Uh-oh, watch out. Don't get used to it.
Yeah. Now it's going back up to 100 on Sunday, so but it's really been a nice summer so far. So I had some there's some things that I've been experimenting with as a facilitator that have started to show up for me as a way of appreciating the work that we're doing and appreciating the structure of recovery and the structure of the accountability practice. And I'd like to share it with you. And if there's something in it that you find, well, whatever your reaction is, I'd like to welcome it.
Okay,
Um,
sounds good.
so here's kind of what started to happen for me. I started and just look. This is, of course, a result of paying attention to my own work with this process, and then as a facilitator working with others. In the Adult Children of Alcoholics Red Book, it talks about we're undergoing the process of reparenting.
Yeah,
And you and I have talked about this before, and I've said, accountability practice is the way to do reparenting. So what's showing up for me is a little refinement of that understanding. And that refinement is this, that part of what the accountability practice is doing simultaneously, we're acknowledging the little child when we say, as the accountability tree says, what's the truth of what's going on right now, and feel the reality, feel the truth.
yeah.
I'm cruel. What is it? I'm cruel beyond um,
Mean to the point of cruelty.
mean to the point of cruelty, and feel that.
Yeah,
That's that mean to the beyond the point of cruelty is that little kid. That's the defense mechanism. It's the reality. It's the way that little kid stays safe, as you've gone over many times in the podcast.
yep,
Meanness is safety for our little kids.
yeah,
Now, that's a little kid, but the adult is going, well, I don't want to be mean. I don't want to be cruel.
right,
And,
right.
and so what started to show up for me is that in doing the practice, I can actually, when I'm working with somebody, I can actually address the child and the parent separately. So I'll give you an example. In the gut check meeting a couple of weeks ago, someone was wanted to work on lower back pain,
Yeah,
and so the practice in the gut check meeting, which for those of you who don't know, it's an exploration of how the accountability practice might help me relieve physical symptoms, physical ailments. Um, and we've talked about this before in the podcast. And so I invited the individual to just feel the pain, just
yeah,
like we do in the practice. Just and put your focus, your attention to your back into that pain. And would you be willing to just sit with the pain? And she did that. And then I had this intuitive thought, which was ask her to ask the lower back pain what it wants her to know. And so she did. And she got information.
yeah,
And and she was shocked at the information.
yeah,
Now, pleasantly shocked. She
mm,
that we are that our mind is organized such that we can seem to have these disparate elements that can speak to the adult consciousness. And out of that information that she received, she made an intention. It's like, okay, with that information, what do you want? And so could you be willing to make that intention? And then I realized that because the theory that we're working with here, going all the way back to John Sarno and others, is that chronic illness, chronic pain is unhealed childhood trauma showing up as a physical symptom.
Yeah.
It occurred to me that lower back pain is the equivalent of anxiety, stress, fear that shows up for me when little Marty is upset or feeling lonely. It's just another way of communicating. I can communicate through gut level anxiety. That the experience I have is like having a fist push up against my solar plexus, and then I work with that as I've learned through the process. But it occurred to me that lower back pain or other physical symptoms are the exact same um, experience a little kid is trying to communicate to us.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just occurred to me that that the accountability practice is, in essence, it's a communication between the child and the adult or the parent. So what is the truth? What do you feel? What do I feel? That's the child communicating to the adult. So the feeling is coming from this wounded child, and it may be maybe a psychological symptom of anxiety or fear, or it may be a physical symptom, back, neck, um, discomfort, um, or it could be both. So what's happening is that when we ask to listen to or to feel the feeling, that's a communication going on. The child's feeling is being communicated to the parent or the adult who's paying attention, who's receiving this data in the
Mm-hmm.
form of a feeling, in the form of an emotion. And then the next request is, okay, so what do you want? In the light of this information, what do you want? And my insight is that's the reparenting moment. The adult says, okay, I don't want anxiety. I don't want back pain. I want peace, ease, comfort. I want to feel carefree. I want to feel happy. And that's in essence the parent now saying to the little kid, you're free. I'll take over. I'm taking on the parental responsibility that you didn't get as a kid. I'm going to create for you an environment of joy, peace, freedom, happiness, whatever shows up in the moment of doing the work. Because the other insight I got is that um, the this family of origin body chemistry that I find myself addicted to, and I had an experience the last couple of weeks where I was right back in the family of origin body chemistry. A metaphor that came to me is like that's a prison. And that's a
Yeah.
prison that the little kid created to stay safe.
Mm-hmm.
So within the prison walls, and that body energy is those are the bars of the prison. Within those prison walls, I feel safe. I may be unhappy, I may be suffering, whatever, but it's my pain, it's my suffering. I have the illusion I'm in control of it. And the accountability practice, another way we can look at this is when I say, how do I feel? What's the truth and how do I feel? I'm now aware of this prison. And then when I say, what do I want? I'm essentially unlocking the door.
Yeah.
I'm opening the door and I'm letting myself out. And so as I played with this idea, what came to me is that the accountability process is putting the adult child relationship back in its proper order. The little kid, by creating this prison or this place of safety, is taking on the adult responsibility that the parent should have done.
Right.
I have to make myself safe because my parents aren't doing it for me.
Right.
And then so for years and years and years and years after that, I've lived there. That little kid has continued to be in charge because I, as a developing adult, had no clue that this was going on. Now, with the accountability practice, I get this awareness and I can reclaim that role. And I can basically let my little kid out of prison and let him just do what he wants to do, which is play. He wants to play, he wants to run, he wants to skate, he wants to ride a bike, he wants to climb trees, and but he wants to do that knowing he's got a place to come home to. He wants to
Mhm.
do it knowing that, mom and dad are going to watch out for him and we're going to admire him whenever he figures out something new and does find something, has a breakthrough, and we celebrate that with him. But the
Mhm.
parent is now taking over, taking back that responsibility. What do I want? Oh, I intend to create a world of joy, peace, freedom, community, and health. That's we can understand that. I can understand that as a parental role. I'm creating this world for my little kid. So he no longer has to create a world of anxiety, hypervigilance, fear, separation. Um, so I've been working with this in the meetings and on my one-on-ones and inviting people to what sometimes when we people will say things, I'll now go, is that your adult speaking or the little kid? And people get it. They get this. Oh, yeah, that's my little kid speaking. It's okay. Let's if you're open to it, let's nurture him by paying attention, giving him
Right.
un, giving him unconditional acceptance. I give myself permission to be angry. I give myself permission to be freaked out. I give myself permission to believe God has abandoned me. Whatever it is that I'm judging myself as lacking or doing wrong, the adult comes along and goes, "Hey, I give myself permission to be wrong,"
Wow.
which is the first step to moving toward I revel. I revel in my capacity to be wrong. I
Hmm.
revel in I revel in the mistakes I made today. So I don't know that that's all that different from the way I learned the accountability practice. It's just maybe it's a nuance that that can help some people get into the dialogue with themselves. And so I'll just stop there. That's just what's been going on with me.
Yeah, it is a nuance. I'm always looking for different ways or different metaphors to explain this process. And
Exactly.
what you explained is, and I've said it before, that the accountability tree, me saying my truth, which is owning a character defect without blame or judgment, is the loving parent listening to me. Mine is, well, the one we're using, I'm mean to the point of cruelty. Well, I, that's the, I don't want to be mean to the point of cruelty, but then I find myself in a pattern of behavior, even especially the alcoholism, where I was destroying my own self. That's mean to the point of cruelty. And unaware of it, thinking, well, I like to drink and it's Miller time and I should and I work hard and all these rationalizations as I was committing slow suicide. So me saying I'm mean to the point of cruelty, taking the breath, and I'm going to bring the accountability tree up here in a minute, is my adult person listening to what the child came to survive. It's like when I was a kid, the only way out I could think of, and I'm thinking 8, 9 years old, was fantasizing about a plane crashing into the house and my parents dying.
Right.
Well, how do I as an adult, after going to Catholic school and learn about morals and sins and don't be mean and holding the fantasy, because that's the only way out that child had, was
Yep.
to fantasize about some kind of something happening around us. So
To get us out of prison.
to get us out of prison, because we had no recourse because we weren't mirrored healthy emotional regulation. So okay, so yes, it's the practice of loving parent. When I've been in adult children of alcoholics a long time, and I heard loving parent, critical parent, loving parent, but I did not see, and I'm sure in that book they have a way to exercise loving parent. I didn't see it. And when I came up with the accountability tree as I was working in the institutions and jails, I saw the benefit of and counterintuitiveness of just simply saying where I found myself in a behavior or pattern I found myself. What I didn't know as a child was I am not my behaviors. But as a child, my behaviors cause recourse to come back on me. So I identified with the behavior. So me saying the truth, I mean to the point of cruelty, is in alignment with the behavior. And when I say it, it has encoded in that I mean to the point of cruelty, that sound, it has encoded in it the trauma that caused the behavior. And in the breath, not judging that, just being with that, I can feel the difference between the behavior and who I am. I am not the behavior of mean to the point of cruelty. I got the information to stay safe and survive that mean was a good idea, or it worked for me. And then I stuffed it because I didn't want to be a bad boy, be vengeful and hateful. So I stuffed that, told everybody I'm a nice guy, which was another lie to myself. And then when I finally got to this place where somebody explained accountability to me in a way that wasn't the dictionary's definition of accountability, which means blame worthy, punishable. The guy that did that gets punished. No, just accounting, stating the data of where I find myself, like I'm a Donovan alcoholic, without blame or judgment. That set up the truth of where I found myself. It initiated an emotion that was revelatory somehow, because whatever the revelation was, I can't explain to you. I did feel a sloughing, an ease, a space, and then it's like, oh my God, I intend to be kind, or I intend to be gracious, or I intend to forgive myself. And that was what I didn't get as a child, being mirrored. Oh, that hurts. Oh, and then being exemplified kindness. Instead of being exemplified kindness, I see you're angry, John, or I see you're upset, or I see what's going on. You're frustrated. And mirroring that, I got punished, ostracized, humiliated, ridiculed, traumatized, because they didn't know what to do with the feeling. They just wanted me to stop so they would be okay. And this is how the intergenerational passing on of dysfunction happens. I picked it up. And when I had my family, I passed it along until I got into recovery and decided I'm not going to do this anymore. I need a way out. And yeah, the accountability tree process is a experience of loving parent. And in that space of no blame, no judgment, no guilt, no shame, I become lucid and go, oh, that hurts. Not only them, it hurts me. I intend to be kind. And that intent is now a command to this mechanism that created meanness for my survival to create kindness, not only for my survival, but for my comfort. That survival mechanism in a young child doesn't care about comfort or fulfillment. It just cares that you stay alive. So you stay alive, stuff the feeling, be conform, do whatever, hold the vengeance right below the tip of the tongue, because if you say it out loud, and then guilt, shame, blame, and I get stuck,
Rage.
rage, and I get stuck in this cycle, this pattern of behavior that for me, the only thing that would relieve it when I found alcohol, it was like, oh my God, I'm in heaven because I don't have all the, what I call inhibitions. But it was a place where I didn't feel the guilt. I was free from that, albeit temporary, because the alcohol wore off and I had to re-ingest and re-ingest and re-ingest until that didn't work. And then I went into some kind of recovery. Um,
Well,
so,
and then
wow.
for some people, for some of us, many of us, that process of
Yeah.
stuffing, of not speaking the resentment or the disagreement or whatever, the process of doing that continually can actually be taken into the tissue of the body
Yes.
and become chronic illness, chronic back pain. I had Crohn's disease, so that's a chronic inflammation of the gut. I mean,
Yep.
gut. Just take it right into the gut.
Yep.
And it's the equivalent of emotionally being punched in the gut over and over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and
And
again,
you don't go ahead.
and I just again, it's not like my parents said, "Let's beat the shit out of Marty" at
Right.
all.
No. No.
That's just the way I received it,
Right.
and I didn't know how to ask for help.
Right.
So all I could do is like do more,
Right.
double down, and
Mhm.
then the negative consequences would double down,
Right.
and the frustration and the fear and the even today as a 71-year-old man, I find times where I just bite my tongue rather than say the truth, and that's like, oh my
Right.
God, I'm right back home.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't say that.
Yeah. And this stress creating chronic uh, uh, situations. Don't take our word for it. Go listen to Gabor Mate. Gabor Mate says complex post-traumatic stress, childhood trauma is the cause of anything you can think of, emotionally, spiritually, physically, mentally. There's some kind of trauma that created the discordance in whatever area you find it in yourself, and the resolution for the physical ailment is in relieving the trauma, which is what the accountability tree does. It validates the pain that caused the hate or the fantasy that everybody die, and then, oh, I can't, that's mean. And I stuffed it, and without expressing it, that came out sideways on people all over the place. And anything in my subconscious will express. If I stuff resentment, bitterness, and contempt, it will come out some way, somehow, either physically through my cellular body and visceral and muscular skeletal system, or it will come out on other people around me. It will come out and it will do the damage that it caused me, will create damage outside of me. And in this process of simply owning character defects, owning that place I find myself, and taking a breath. And in the breath, I'm not thinking, how come I, why should I, how come I should. There's no thought. There's just the experience of the feeling of pain. I intend to be kind is like the alchemic chamber led. I mean, the point of cruelty, breathe. I intend to be kind, which is the goal. It's amazing. It's an amazing process.
Yeah. And you know that it occurs to me as I listen to you that the the benefits flow both ways. They flow to that inner child and they flow to the adult learning to reparent,
Yes.
because both things require continuous feedback.
Right.
So, as I set an intention, and let's, for example, I intend to create a world of joy, peace, freedom, community, and health. And as I wake up in the morning and that's my experience, that reinforces this adult faith in this process, and it reinforces the kid's sense that he's safe
Yes.
in this process, that
Yeah.
he's being taken care of, which is all any of our little kids want.
Yeah.
They just want to be taken care of, and they want to be taken care of on their own terms. That's where the problem is, in part because the adult doesn't necessarily know what the kid wants, um,
The
until we get into this process, because here we can now dialogue and learn what that little kid wants.
Yeah. Between the ages of birth and 6, 7, somewhere in there, the child is in a theta state. They're like in a hypnotic state. So, and this is where the enculturation and the socialization process, because there's 40,000 times 10 different mores and ways and hold yourself in the speech is all imprinted on the child for socialization, and it's necessary. And I learned from my grandson going to Waldorf school that from ages 7 to 14, the child needs to know that he's loved by whatever the authority figure is. And that doesn't mean uh, uh, carte blanche, do whatever you want. In the firmness of, oh, that wasn't appropriate, is still feeling loved and not ostracized or humiliated or punished because he's in this learning state. Rudolf Steiner used to go to the schools when he was alive. I think he died in 24. And if they were having trouble with one of the kids, he would go to the teacher and say, this child is not feeling loved by you from between the ages of 7 and 14. So what is it you're doing that this child does not feel loved? And that would solve the child's issue. And it's not about being a good boy. It's about building the capacity to be authentic and cooperate in a social environment, build community, and know how they contribute, and sharing and being in community, and having guidelines like no throwing that rock that's not a good idea. What might be another choice for you besides throwing the rock, from a place of somebody who cares about you instead of sees you as a obstinate little shit that needs to be like moralized or whatever the stuff happened to me and what I did to my kids. Be good. No, be you. And this, we'll sort out the details as we go along from a place of love. So, yeah.
Well, the nuance is that, too bad Snyder's not here, so I can't argue with him, but the nuance is that kid may not feel loved by me, but I may not know how that kid feels loved. And so the opportunity is to dialogue and find out, because I'm assuming by the time you're 7, you can communicate at least elementary needs to an adult who's empathetic enough to listen to you and give you feedback. I hear you, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Because the part of the challenge is that, and this is particularly a challenge in the first 7 years in that hypnotic state period, is for the adult to make that connection with the kid, know it, without getting the positive feedback that he or she's making that connection.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems to me that, so Steiner says that to me, that the kid's not feeling loved by you, that the opportunity for me is to engage in a different kind of relationship with that young kid. Yep. So that I can find out how that kid feels loved, because I don't necessarily know that. I know the fundamentals of love: acceptance, embrace, delight. I know those, but that kid may not be feeling that something else may be going on in that kid's life of which I'm not aware. Mm-hmm. So again, the accountability practice for me is this: it's this deep dialogic process. There's always speaking and listening, and there's speaking and listening back and forth between the child and the adult, elements of ourselves. Mm-hmm. That the more we do that with patience and with intentionality, mm-hmm. the greater the actual the material gets understood both ways. Yeah. Then that feeling of being safe, that feeling of being connected, that feeling of being important, that feeling of being validated grows. And so that world I intend to create, of the world of joy, peace, freedom, community, and health, has starts putting deep roots into my psyche.
Yeah.
And then my experience is that that changes everything. I still have periods where I'm back in my family of origin energy. I went through something the last couple of weeks where it took me a long time to, I was feeling unhappy. I was feeling um, ashamed, and I wasn't quite yet aware that of the hook that I was putting myself on, because little Marty was kind of enjoying it. And that's why I'm willing to give myself permission to hang out in this feeling of unhappiness and unpleasantness. I'm willing to suffer because my adult had the faith and the understanding that sooner or later, aha would show up and I would have the appropriate method to deal with what was going on. And it turned out what the appropriate method was to tell the person that I was hiding this information from the truth. And as soon as I spoke the truth, my friend said, "Well, then we don't have to do that. Let's do something else."
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, so my point is, I've been doing this for 12 years, nowhere near as long as you, and I still have unhealed trauma and within that inner child of mine. And
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong. It's just it
No.
just I just I inculcate, this is the adult side of me. I inculcate within myself the patience that a parent needs to have. The patience that a parent needs to have with a rambunctious 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old, who's oftentimes going to try parents' patience. I mean, that's just the nature of the beast.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm this is giving my entire being gifts. The little boy, the adult, we're all benefiting from this.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was, as I contemplated that, John, that's part of the reason my heart opens up to you, because you taught me this. And I don't, I'm incapable, I think, maybe I'm capable. I feel incapable of expressing that adequately.
I want to offer, if it's a revelation or epiphany, that there are no words to express it, and we
Yeah,
do the best we can with the
exactly,
words that we have. Yes, yeah.
exactly.
I don't remember what I was listening to, either Rudolf Steiner or Course in Miracles, where this revelation is a knowing that our language isn't capable of expressing. It is, we are capable of holding that feeling tone and being in I know, which doesn't need an explanation. And if you try to explain it, it takes away somehow from the feeling of it. I would go to workshops and the people that come to my workshops, I would say, try not to tell people what happened too quickly. Let it set, let it simmer, let it be, because whatever you tell them isn't going to match what just happened here. And the best you got is just falls so far short of this experience. And what I know, that when I embody this experience, this knowingness, my energy shifts, my vibration raises, and people notice that. They notice that. They may not be able to say, oh, would you cut your hair? What, you got different glasses on? You look different. And it's like there's a difference. It's solid. It's physical. It is, and then there's no words to explain what it is. Um, yeah. Um, wow.
You know,
And when I see somebody go through it, and I see this moment happen, and what the word that explains it the best for me is wow. That's it. Wow. And there's this woof. Yes. Yes. Whatever that is. Yes. I know that. I know my experience of that. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's like I think I told you that there's that book by Anne Lamott about the three prayers:
Oh,
help, thanks, wow.
yeah. 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 I'm trying to explain something now. There's no words for it. So I'll just like,
Well, it's very funny because um, one of my other gurus is Ken Wilber, and Ken wrote this really powerful essay. He called it The Great Search. And he talked about how the the human, from his perspective, the human dilemma is that we're called to find God, find spirit, find source. And the the he says um, the attempt to find that which we already are keeps us from awareness that that's who we already are,
yep.
because we're looking outside of ourselves for what's already here. And he says, and as human beings, we can't help but engage on the great search, as he calls it.
Yeah.
It's like you can intellectually know that this ain't going to work, but you're not going to be able to help yourself.
Right.
And that the what what's happened for most people who discover the truth is that they just give up looking. Well, that's the story of the Buddha. He just sat down under the tree and said, I'm not looking anymore.
Right.
And then, whoa, he woke up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or it also reminds me of this idea that some things cannot be expressed. I was reading, I think I've shared with you, my favorite translation of the Tao Te Ching is the one by Stephen Mitchell. And in the afterword to to his translation, he talks about Lao Tzu and the origins of what the traditions say the origins of the Tao was that Lao Tzu was he was an old man and he was leaving the country. He was tired of China or whatever, and he got to the border, and the border guard said, "Well, before you leave, would you be willing to write down everything that you've learned?" And so he decided to take on this challenge, and after he told the guard, he goes, "Well, nothing I've learned can be put into words." And Mitchell makes the comment, and he wrote the Tao anyway,
And he wrote it anyway. Yeah.
because we're stuck. We're stuck
Mhm.
with the limitations of our physiology. We're stuck with the limitations of our biochemistry. Um, we haven't evolved to the point where we can communicate. We have the capacity, as you know, we have this capacity for intuitive communication, but it's not yet developed to the point where that's the foundational way we communicate.
Yeah.
We're in the process of evolving that.
Yes. Exactly.
So we use these clumsier methods because they're the ones we got.
Yeah.
And the
We're
fact
in
that
the
we're
process.
willing, let me
Go
just
ahead.
finish my thought. The fact that we're willing to do that pushes the evolution.
There you go. That's the same thing I was going to say. As we're looking for it, we're in the process of building the capacity for it. It's like we're doing exactly what we need to be doing to move to wherever it is we're going. And and I'm going to continue talking about what I talk about, which is how do I become more compassionate, more kind? How do I live in a place of free choice instead of reactive response? So yeah,
Yeah,
and it's okay. And here's one of the things I came to a long time ago: God don't need my help, but and and I'm going to do it anyway. It's like He doesn't need my help, but if I don't
exactly.
do it, somebody else come along. And, okay, fine. I'll just be me, which is um, passionate about me finding something I'm looking for, just like you said. And
Yeah.
do it. I'll just do it.
Well, it just reminds me of that great line in Harold and Maude when Maude tells Harold, says, consistency is not a human trait.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to do it anyway.
I'm gonna do it anyway.
Is like, we do our best and we make mistakes and we get caught in dead ends and detours and like, you know,
Mm.
so what becomes
So, so the
becomes
reason
my awareness.
So the reason I'm here talking to you about what we're talking about is that I had a grandfather that was sitting in Cork County, Ireland one day and got bored and says, I'm going, first he went to Australia and he lived in Australia for a couple of years and then he went back to Ireland and he goes, got bored again. So he's going to the United States. Okay. So he did that because he wanted to. I'm going to do this because I want to, and we'll see how it works out.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of what the Buddha did and Jesus did. That's what they wanted to do, so they went and did it.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Or anybody, Oppenheimer. This is who we are.
Yeah.
And some of us want to suffer, and so we go and suffer.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing that I'm really committed to internalizing is there's nothing wrong, and including the fact that I sometimes think there's something wrong.
Right.
It's like, okay, that's fine. So earlier you said, I mean, we got a few minutes left, and I'm just wanted to see if you're willing. You said that you've put some new things up on the whiteboard. I wonder if you'd be willing to share that with us.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Um, this white, the material grows slowly, and it does grow. Make me co-host, and I can do a share screen.
All right. Give me a second here. I have to figure out how to do that.
Okay.
All right, there you go.
Oh. Um, okay. Yeah, I'm going to go up on the board. I may have needed you to do that. I may not have, but there's the board. Okay.
There's a board, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay.
This is for those of you who are new. This is the Accountability Bible. It's briefer than the Tao Te Ching. It's certainly briefer than the actual Christian Bible, the
Right.
Judeo-Christian Bible. But here it is.
Okay. So I've added this right here in parentheses. I used to go tell the truth, and I'd say take a breath, and then in the truth, and we spoke to this on Means of the Point of Cruelty, is encoded the pain. This is the subconscious trauma that caused the Means of the Point of Cruelty, which made sense to the little child. And then take a breath. So breathe. The other thing is, I used to have 4 constants of relationship. And I added a new one, number 4, and it's going to need a lot of explanation. Most of everything on the board's cryptic, which is, in my mind, purposeful because it creates dialogue. It's like, what do you
Right.
mean by my truth? Or what do you mean by focused attention? And the one I added is question the story. I talk a lot about the story I tell about other people is me creating the reality that other people have dominion over me. I don't know why I said dominion, but power over me. And one of the examples that I gave last Saturday is that I was in a workshop and they said, tell us the story about your divorce. And I said, well, I got married and we had 2 kids. I bought a piece of property up in Shingle Springs, 10 acres. I worked on the place, remodeled the inside. And then as I placed the last tile, my wife told me to get the hell out. And like, that was shitty, wasn't it? And then the facilitator said, tell the story from your power, John. I took a deep breath and I thought, oh, I got married to my first wife. I was happy for the first 3 years. I didn't know how to say this wasn't working for me, so I did everything I could to piss her off so that she would tell me to leave. And it took 8 years. And as I laid the last towel, that was it. She told me to leave. So I blamed her instead of telling the truth about I didn't have the guts to say this wasn't working. So that story in my power gave me information about I have a part in wherever I find myself. The story went from everybody else to autobiographical. I'm participating in what happens to me, and I'm participating with passion, whether I think I am or not. Whatever's happening out there, I'm calling in to learn, grow, to experience myself. So that's why I questioned the story. At first, I had changed the story, but you can change it to another victim story. It's changed, but question the story. Is that story true? Because when the facilitator asked me, it was the first time I really, maybe not the first time, but I got that there was something I wasn't saying. So I'm going to come back and sit down.
Yeah.
Those are the two things that are changed on that board. And I'm sure more will change as I go through this process and learn myself about all the stuff going on. So,
Well, thanks for the update.
yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, that story thing is that's a useful addition. It just intuitively off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Um, and
See, whatever story you're telling is important to listen to it. It's like, they did this to me. Okay. All right. What was I doing while they were doing this to me? How do I insert myself, my power, my choices into the story? And I got this, I don't know, 7, 8 years ago when I heard somebody say to me, actually a therapist, John, your story is not autobiographical. I had no idea what she was talking about at the time because I thought, well, here I am. I'm telling this story. I don't know how more autobiographical you can get, but I was telling this story.
I'm using the word I.
Yeah, I'm using the word I. I was victimized by this person again and again and again. Okay. And what I'm understanding is my autobiographical story is me telling the truth about how I participated in whatever conflict, construct, decompensating with in relationship to other people. Um, um, we have this saying in our society, it takes two. It takes two to tango. But then everybody goes to, yeah, but her, yeah, but he, yeah, but her, yeah, but he. And instead of going, okay, oh no, this is what I did. This is what I'm afraid of. This is what I'm unable to say. This is where I'm not happy. Because that would, like, before, I didn't do that consciously, and I didn't want to be perceived as wrong. I didn't want to be wrong. So I set it up so I was always right. And my righteous victimization of myself, not only from her, but from the job, the county, the government, the street sweepers, all these people that gave me. Anyway, I'm no longer the victim. I participate. If I'm being victimized, I'm participating in my victimization. If I'm being empowering or getting empowered, I'm participating in the empowerment. I have a say. And without the awareness of complex post-traumatic stress, relegated to my subconscious, that I was motivated by things I wasn't aware of, like mean to the point of cruelty. That's motivated by the pain of somebody getting too close, and hurting me, and that was true for my child, it's no longer true for my adult because I have choice, but I was stuck in the old information. Um, um, so I don't know. I
Well, and it
just thought,
occurs to me that what facilitates that old way of being and being in the world is projection.
yes,
So I have pain, I have fear, I have doubt, and I can't own it. So I'm only going to see it out there, and that's where the blame, she did, he did, they did,
right,
all that
yeah,
stuff is a projection of my own inability to take on the responsibility of self-creation, of
right,
self-authorship, of
right,
that autobiographical power, as opposed
right,
to sort of this mealy mouth way that most of us do it.
right. So,
So that again, that's another one of your now I have to remember five constants.
yeah,
Is withdraw projections,
right. Yeah, that's one of the constants. All my projections.
own them, right?
Yeah, move towards my pain. Now it's question the story. Is the story true? And then today I intend to. Oh,
One of the things that this is really a useful point that you made that I make in my book, Creating Our World, that from an evolutionary perspective, we're still in the early stages of learning how to create a society of self-authoring adults.
yeah,
We're still mostly stuck in the tribal world where we worry about what other people think, and we give that power away, as you were saying earlier, to others. We have to conform to the opinion of other people. Um, and the breakthrough that modernity offered us is no, you don't. You have the power to create your own life. And we see that many of the people that we admire are people who followed their own bliss. They did their own thing. They whether they're great entertainers, singers, actors, scientists. It's one of the reasons that maybe that this Oppenheimer movie is so popular right now. They may be political leaders, they may be spiritual leaders, but they're all people that responded to that daimon, as James Hillman calls it, that internal source of what we're here to create. And they just go ahead and do it. And they don't ask permission. They don't ask the family, they don't ask the tribe, they don't ask the neighborhood, do I have permission to um, go and invent quantum physics? No, I'm just going to go. I want to find out about this, and I go and
right,
do it.
yeah.
So again, I see accountability as an evolutionary um, accelerator because it helps that adult become self-confident, to become intentional at the bottom of the tree. I intend intentional living. I intend to create this life. I intend to create a world of joy, peace, freedom, community, health. And that's the question. The story really helps consolidate that from, again, from my first thought about what you're sharing.
My personal journey, and I want to speak to that hopefully in this story about my personal journey, was before my recovery, my sphere of concern was very small. Me, my
Yeah.
truck, gun rack. Okay, so that was my just stay away, screw you. I don't need your shit. I don't need help. Leave me alone. To an expansion to a larger community, which was a 12-step community. It was a larger community, larger community. So I have individualized. I know who I am, and now I can choose to see the other as me. My treatment of the other is actually providing a space for me to be safe. So as an individual, I contribute to the welfare of the whole, where early ages before it was the tribe, they didn't even have a sense of, I'm going to go do this, because everything was revolved around the safety and the need to identify as a tribal member, which was appropriate for the time.
Yep.
And then the evolutionary process, the Industrial Revolution, the Enlightenment, we go to this I don't know, bifurcation is the right word, this polarization, me against you. And I went through that in my own life to where now it's like, oh, I intend to be in service to others because that benefits me. It benefits my children and my grandson and my family. They're safe when I am. It is my intent to be of service. Well, that's now a choice to be of service to the community. It's no longer tribe. The community is expanded, um, and as a individual, which had to happen. I had to like, oh, screw you. I don't need you. I'm going to do this myself. And then come to the place where I could see the harm I was causing by separating, still containing my I-ness, and now choosing to participate in community from free will, from, I don't know if free will is the right word, but from choice,
Yeah.
from seeing the benefit
Yeah.
of creating safety, not only for me, but for the other people too.
Yeah.
So yeah, and we're in this together. And when more people see the benefit of me being who I am, authentically me, and then choosing to be of service to the whole, it's like, it just makes sense to me. Just makes sense to me now. And I know that everything I do is, even this podcast, if it weren't for 10,000 people creating the camera and the computer, I am dependent on, okay, so I'm in gratitude for those people doing what they love to do, which is work on computers, whatever they're doing, so that I can't do this alone. See, I see that real clearly. I drive on streets where people are spending hours and hours maintaining. I'm in gratitude for them. So
Well, you will never come to the end of your gratitude if, as you consider everything that all the people that have contributed to our well-being,
yes.
the food we eat, the
Oh,
the vehicles that we travel in, the people that printed our books, wrote the book. I think about when I get up in the morning and I have certain stuff that I check on the internet. I think these people are serving me.
yeah, yeah.
They got up earlier today and they put their thoughts down and they connected to these other things so that I could enjoy this.
Yes.
So there's no end to this interconnectedness. And from the perspective of evolution, not to get too esoteric here, but when there's a critical mass of people who have reached this level, then the next level is we stop identifying as individuals and we start identifying as as humanity, as a singularity.
Right.
I am humanity.
Right.
And I have no idea how that's going to manifest, but I know that's what's next.
Yeah. Me too. And I
And
have
that
no
and
idea.
and this work that we're doing is contributing to the day when that critical mass is reached.
Yes.
It could be tomorrow, it could be 10,000 years from now.
Yeah,
I have no
so
clue.
I heard this term soon. Soon could
Yeah,
be 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years, 2000, a
yeah.
millennium. Okay, soon.
Well, this goes back to what you were saying is like, I'm not in charge of that. God can handle the timing.
Right. You can handle the minutia.
Yeah.
I'm gonna, I'm gonna stay
Right.
here and talk about accountability.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm gonna I'm gonna do my facilitation work and I'm gonna learn new stuff about the
Right.
value of it and new ways to say it, like we were saying at the beginning.
Mhm.
So I appreciate this time to be together,
Yeah.
and maybe at this point in time, maybe the next time we get together, I'll be in Costa Rica, and maybe we'll do an international podcast.
That'd be cool.
We'll see what happens. And
Okay.
so, thanks for your time. And as always, before we ring off, and I'll give you the last word, I want to let people know that there are 4 different accountability practice meetings a week that are all on Zoom. So if you'd like to check out this process that we're talking about, the the accountability tree that John showed us on the board there, the process of learning to tell the real truth, question the story, and find out what's really going on. Feel the feelings, feel the truth, and then ask ourselves what we want, and out of that desire, create a new intention. I intend to be happy. I intend to enjoy life. I intend to be kind,
Mhm.
um, and find that freedom. That's the birthright of every human being. But we got to go through this prison to get to the freedom. That's the interesting process.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
and so at the end of the podcast, our ways to communicate with me and John will be posted, and we'll be happy to send you the addresses to the different Zoom meetings and times and all that kind of stuff. So
I,
please join us.
my last word is my computer just flashed battery low, so we'll just go ahead and sign
All
off.
right. Thanks,
And
John.
okay.
Love
Thank you.
you. See you
Love you
next
too.
time.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.